Hi guys, welcome back here. I'm just using a improvised tripod here. And, this is a little bit of a project, as some of you know that I was working on my home-built 3D printer, and I made it sort of an exploded diagram of parts that I've been inventing here in TinkerCad. And as you can see, my idea is going to be to hold the hot end there in the middle, but in lines with my other projects, I'm using L-channel extruded aluminum, and you can see the L-channel shapes here. I've made this one render transparent by setting it as a hole just for now. And this dark blue to black line here represents the belt. And this is all very temporary, sort of a placeholder idea, except for the rollers. Those are actually modeled in actual size. They'll be V-groove roller bearings. Almost all the holes are just M3 machine screws, but all the parts have to be in fabricator mini size printable chunks. And this big green part here on the end, mint or green or whatever, holds a stepper motor up through the bottom, and I've already tested the fit. You may have seen the blue version of this mount way in the back here, holding a stepper motor. This has got the same bottom dimensions for mounting, and it's designed to give me enough room to attach the bolts that mount the stepper motor, and then temporary bolts are here. And I say temporary because some of this plastic is going to end up being fused together. It's just they come out in parts like that because that's as big as my fabricator mini can print until I have this big thing. Something I'm going to take a minute to mention. I'm going to be using 3D printed bushings instead of roller bearings on my rods. I found them to be working pretty good in my tests. I think I did another video a while back. But these printed plastic housings will also, of course, fit the standard roller bearings later. And there's one on the top and bottom, and it passes through the middle of the L channel here. And then this darker one here, that represents the lead screw coming up from the stepper. And there's a video I haven't quite uploaded yet, probably uploaded before you see this one. And you'll see this little thing here. This is the top keeper for the coupling nut, which is a very long threaded nut, which has very little backlash because of how long it is. This pushes up, the nut would push up on this and then against this yellow plate when it's all collected up together. So this would take the lifting force of the nut, and then there's a little tiny tooth, you can't really see it here, but a little tiny tooth is all that would be needed to help ease this back down, because I'm not expecting hardly any friction. But if you notice, there's some play around this, and the hole here will not be tightened very tight, just enough to stop it from turning. What I want is for this to be able to move a little bit in the horizontal plane, like congruent with the work plane here, because these threaded rods are notoriously unstraight, especially in the middle. And if this can move around side to side while still applying the same linear lift, that's much better. You get a much better print by isolating any wandering of the threaded shaft. Over here is a mirror image, with the exception of the end block, because this block is just going to have the tensioner pulley assembly, which I'm not finished designing on that end, but most of the parts are just a mirror. In this design, the belt actually wraps around the lifting rod, and the back support would be over in this space here. I haven't quite done that yet. I'm still working on a few things in how this sort of pinky rose shape here will connect these bolts down. I'm probably going to make a cutout here in the middle that'll allow me to put a nut on the bottom, so I could have a M3 bolt come in from either side, and then a keeping nut in the middle, possibly even use one of my 12mm brass nuts, the standoffs for PCBs and things. But if you notice, the hole actually passes through the inside edge of the L channel, so I might actually have to nick that L channel out with a saw or something And the benefit of that is going to create a bit of a lock. Now, some of you might be thinking there's not enough plastic here to hold the L channel, but my test with the PLA that I'm intending on using, which is either going to be my white or my yellow that I have in stock, that is more than enough. In fact, it can be a hindrance just to get the L channel in there unless you've done some smoothing and some sanding. But I'm not intending to do a whole lot of the smoothing and sanding because I'm going to be assembling this only probably once. Probably won't take it apart very many times. So once I get it figured out and set in there, the L channel will probably go in, and it might also be glued on one of these ends. I might glue maybe this end and let that end be removable. Then I'm not sure if it was clear, but this bottom plate actually goes up and sandwiches right in here on the bottom, and then this bearing block goes up, and it also provides the retaining for the turning force of the lifting nut, or whatever you want to call it. I guess we'll call that the lifting nut. But that's my idea, where I was just thinking of how I could use my L channel aluminum extrusion ideas to make an actual X-axis or gantry for lightweight CNC. It's not going to weigh a whole lot. It's going to be some light 3D printed parts and aluminum. So I think the heaviest thing on it is going to be the stepper motor. Next is going to be the actual hot end, which I'm going to feed it Bowden style. And yeah, so I guess the first thing I'm going to try and print this weekend is going to be the motor mount here, because that design's pretty much locked in. Then I'll probably move on to these yellow plates because their design is pretty much locked in. I've already printed these nut keepers, and they were in my last video, my last mechanical update, part B, 5B. Yeah, obviously this end is going to be a lot further apart than just the little space I'm showing here. Actually, the printable build area is the size of the work plane on the bottom. So the space between these two is at least going to be that, with enough room for the carriage. So it'll be as wide as that blue work plane, plus the width of the carriage and a little bit extra, as how long the aluminum extrusion is. So there, essentially, you're only limited by the length of belt that you have and the length of good quality extrusion that you have before it starts flexing. And there's another type of flexing force you have to watch, which isn't the one that you would think of for weight. It's actually when you have compressed bearings, they'll be slightly compressed. Inwards force in the direction of the V. When it gets out in the middle, the force is a little bit weaker, and if it's not strong enough and there's too much bowing, you could actually get some deflection in the end of this print head down here. So I'll be watching for that. So this pretty much is going to be an experiment, and I'm hoping I've got enough plastic for it. Might have to be a little while before I can get some plastic. As I may have mentioned in my other video, I've got some stuff to fix on my car, and unfortunately the budget is not separate. Everything comes out of one cookie jar right now. But yeah, that's what I'm at so far, and I'm going to start by printing this part, and then the yellow and these yellow cap parts. Then I'm going to have to do some test prints of just getting the diameter in there properly sized to the PLA bushings that I've already printed and had them sized that work with my smooth rod. Then I'll know that I've got the internal size here just right, and then I'll go ahead and print the top two pieces because they're identical, they're just rotated. And once I know I have the internal diameter of those correct, I'll be able to do the bottom ones, because they're pretty much the same. They just have this extra chunk on it to help hold this, the nut, excuse me, hold on, excuse me, this nut holder there. Anyhow, that's the, we'll call this the mechanical design update of what I'm planning on doing for my X-axis. Now this might take me a little while to do because some of these parts are going to be about 2 hours each on my Fabricator Mini. In fact, I think these rose-colored ones, those might actually be 3-hour parts. Some things I can do to try and speed that up, but we'll worry about that then. Anyhow, as always, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to put them below. I will be trying to put these files, or the collected parts, in a file on TinkerCAD public when it's done. If anybody really wants them now, I might, make the file available as well. And I will plan on adding this to my Hackaday projects page on a new project referencing the first project for the L-channel extrusions. And who knows, it could be a follow-up project. I might be getting rid of these smooth rods, or testing using smooth aluminum extrusions. Some of you around North America anyways, I don't know other countries or whatnot, really smooth aluminum extrusion rods are available. They're pretty strong. They get a little bit flexy after about 1 foot, but if everything doesn't weigh a whole lot to begin with and you're not putting a whole lot of stress on them, you're just using them from guides, we might be able to avoid steel altogether on those and keep everything nice and light. Anyhow, as I was saying there, if you like, don't forget to like. If you dislike, and please leave a comment why. Helps me out. And don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.